There is a paradox that very few people are willing to accept. The person who spends the most time chasing happiness is often the person furthest away from finding it. And when you understand why this happens, the way you see your own life begins to change, because you'll stop asking, "How can I feel better?" And you'll start asking something far more powerful. Who do I need to become? For years you've been sold an idea that sounds logical, an idea that even sounds inspiring. That happiness is a destination, that one day, after achieving enough, after fixing enough, after becoming enough, you'll finally arrive. The day you make enough money, the day you build the life you've always imagined, the day everything finally falls into place. Then you'll be happy, but there's a problem. That day never comes. Not because those achievements are impossible, but because your mind has a remarkable ability to turn the extraordinary into the ordinary. The dream you chased for years eventually becomes part of your routine. The achievement you believed would transform your life becomes your new expectation, and then something predictable happens. A new goal appears, a new pursuit, a new promise. Once I have this, then I'll finally be okay. But when you finally get it, the feeling fades, and the cycle starts again. Maybe you've experienced this. You reach something you've wanted for a long time. For a moment, everything feels different. You feel like you're finally moving forward, but slowly, the excitement disappears, the novelty wears off, and the same quiet question returns. Is this really all there is? So you search for the next thing, not because ambition is the problem, but because you're trying to solve an internal problem with external achievements. And that's a battle you can never win, because there will always be something else to achieve, something else to improve, something else to chase. Happiness becomes a carrot hanging in front of you, always close, never truly reached. But here's the uncomfortable truth. The problem isn't that you want to be happy. The problem is that you've made happiness a requirement for living, and when you do that, something dangerous happens. You begin rejecting anything that doesn't feel good. Frustration, uncertainty, discipline, failure, waiting. Everything without an immediate reward starts to feel like a sign that something is wrong. But what if the opposite is true? What if those moments aren't obstacles? What if they are the process? Think about building strength. A muscle doesn't grow because it's constantly comfortable. It grows because resistance forces it to adapt. Difficulty isn't always something to escape. Sometimes it's information, a signal that you're developing. But modern life has been designed around removing discomfort. Everything is becoming faster, easier, more convenient. Instant entertainment, instant gratification. Never before has it been easier to avoid feeling bad, and yet so many people feel lost. Because there's a difference between feeling good and being well. Feeling good is temporary. It depends on circumstances. A good day, a compliment, a positive outcome. But being well is something deeper. It's knowing that even when life doesn't feel the way you want, you're still moving in the right direction. The ancient Greeks understood this distinction. They had two different concepts for two completely different ways of living. The first was hedonia, the pursuit of pleasure, comfort, immediate satisfaction. The second was eudaimonia, a life built around purpose, virtue, growth, the development of character. Hedonia asks, how can I feel better right now? Eudaimonia asks, who am I becoming through this experience? And that difference changes everything. Because many people aren't empty because life is too difficult. They're empty because their entire life is organized around feeling good. And when you spend your life avoiding pain, you also avoid the experiences that create depth. A diamond doesn't exist without pressure. The pressure doesn't destroy it. It creates it. But even if you understand that comfort alone cannot create a meaningful life, there is another trap. A quieter one, a trap that keeps intelligent, talented, ambitious people stuck for years, And the most dangerous part is this. It doesn't look like a weakness, but it looks like a strength. It's the belief that you are special. There is an idea that sounds positive, an idea that seems necessary for growth. I'm different. I'm meant for something greater. I have unique potential, and to a certain extent, it's true. Every person has unique abilities. Every person has a combination of experiences, talents, and opportunities that no one else has. But there is a dangerous line between recognizing your potential and building your identity around the belief that you deserve extraordinary results before developing the ability to sustain them. That's where the trap begins, because once you believe you are special, you start interpreting reality differently. Obstacles stop being part of the process, they become unfair. Mistakes stop being feedback. They become attacks against your identity. Failure stops being a lesson. It becomes proof that something is wrong, and slowly you stop asking, what do I need to improve? And start asking, why doesn't the world recognize my value? That question can keep you trapped for years. Because while you're focused on proving that you're special, you're not doing the work required to become exceptional. And there is a massive difference. Exceptional people don't spend their energy protecting an image. They spend it improving themselves. But when your identity depends on feeling special, you begin protecting a version of yourself that cannot be challenged. Every criticism feels like a threat. Every comparison feels like a wound. Every person who achieves what you want becomes a reminder. I'm not where I thought I would be. And this creates one of the biggest enemies of growth. The ego trying to protect an outdated version of you. Imagine a student who is naturally gifted. For years they hear, you're smart, you're talented, you can achieve anything. But they never develop the ability to continue when things become difficult. Then life presents a real challenge, a difficult exam, a demanding project, a situation where talent alone is not enough. And for the first time, they don't stand out. What happens next? A person with a growth mindset thinks, I need to learn more. A person attached to being special thinks, maybe this isn't for me. The problem was never the difficulty. It was the interpretation. Because when your worth depends on feeling superior, any moment where you don't feel superior becomes a threat. But when your worth comes from living according to your principles, difficulty becomes training. This is where the inverse law appears. The same principle that explains why chasing happiness creates unhappiness. The more you try to protect a perfect image of yourself, the more afraid you become of anything that could reveal that image isn't real. You want to appear confident, so you avoid situations where you might feel insecure. You want to appear intelligent, so you avoid questions that might expose what you don't know. You want to appear successful, so you hide the attempts that haven't worked yet. The search for a perfect identity prevents you from building a strong one, because a strong identity isn't created by proving you never fail, it's created by knowing you can fail, and continue anyway. The ancient philosophers had a word for this, virtue, but they didn't mean perfection. They meant developing the qualities required to live well. A courageous person isn't someone who never feels fear. It's someone who learns to act despite fear. A disciplined person isn't someone who always feels motivated. It's someone who acts even when motivation disappears. A mature person isn't someone who never experiences negative emotions. It's someone who refuses to let those emotions decide who they become. That is the fundamental shift. You stop building your life around how you feel, and you start building it around who you choose to be. But to understand how to do that, you need to see the stages of psychological development that shape almost every human life, because many people never move beyond the second stage. The first stage is childhood. The logic is simple. I want something. If I don't have it, something is wrong. The child lives through immediate desire. Only the feeling of the moment exists. Then comes the second stage. And this is where many people remain for their entire lives, adolescence. Not in age, in mindset. Psychological adolescence is a life built around transactions. If I achieve this, then I'll finally be enough. If I make more money, I'll be enough. If I gain recognition, I'll be enough. If people admire me, I'll be enough. Your identity becomes dependent on outcomes. Your self-worth becomes dependent on external reactions. You are constantly negotiating with the world, doing things not because they represent your values, but because you hope they will give you something in return. Approval. Status. Validation. And this leads to the question that separates immaturity from true adulthood. Would you still do the right thing if nobody ever knew? Would you still train if nobody saw your progress? Would you still build your vision if nobody applauded? Because that's where real adulthood begins. When you stop living for rewards and start living as an expression of your values. But before we build that identity, you need to understand the biggest mistake people make when they try to change. They try to change their results, when what they really need to change is the person creating those results. Most people try to change their lives from the wrong place. They change their goals. They change their strategies. They change their tools. They change their environment. But they leave untouched the identity that created the problem. And that's why they keep returning to the same place. You can buy a new planner. Download another productivity app. Create the perfect habit system. But if you are still the same person who quits when discomfort appears, the result will eventually be the same, because your actions are never separate from the identity behind them. Your identity is the operating system. Your habits are the applications. You can install new applications all day, but if the operating system is broken, everything eventually fails. This is why so many people consume personal development for years and still feel exactly the same. They don't lack information. They lack transformation. They know what they should do, but they haven't become the person who can do it consistently. And this is where the real shift begins. The wrong question is, what do I need to achieve to finally feel happy? The better question is, who do I need to become to build a life aligned with my values? It sounds like a small change, but it creates an entirely different life. Imagine two people receiving the same news. Both lose an important opportunity. The first thinks, this proves I'm not good enough. The second thinks, this shows me what I need to improve. The external event is identical. The reality is the same. But their internal worlds are completely different, because we don't respond directly to reality. We respond to the meaning we assign to reality. And that meaning is shaped by the identity through which we see the world. Someone who sees themselves as a victim sees obstacles. Someone who sees themselves as a creator sees challenges to solve. Someone who needs approval sees criticism as an attack. Someone committed to growth sees information. The event didn't change, the observer changed. And this is one of the most powerful principles of inner transformation. You cannot control every event in your life, but you can train the person who interprets those events. The Stoics understood this thousands of years ago. They weren't trying to create a life where nothing painful happened. They knew that was impossible. They were trying to build a mind that could remain steady regardless of what happened. That is the difference. A fragile person tries to remove every difficulty. A strong person develops the ability to move through it. A fragile person needs circumstances to be comfortable before they can feel at peace. A strong person can remain aligned even when circumstances are uncomfortable. This doesn't mean becoming emotionless. It doesn't mean pretending pain doesn't exist. It doesn't mean ignoring what you feel. It means something much harder, feeling the emotion, without allowing it to control your identity. You can feel fear and still act. You can feel uncertainty and still build. You can feel disappointment and still move forward. Because maturity is not controlling every emotion you experience. It's controlling what you choose to do with those emotions. This brings us back to the difference between hedonia and eudaimonia. Hedonia tries to optimize the experience. Eudaimonia tries to optimize the person. Hedonia asks, "How can I avoid feeling bad?" Eudaimonia asks, "What can this moment teach me?" Hedonia wants a life without problems. Eudaimonia wants a life where problems have meaning. And this explains why some people experience enormous hardship, yet still develop a deep sense of peace. Not because life was easier for them, but because they stopped fighting reality. They learned to work with it. Think about a tree. A tree protected from every storm may grow quickly, but its roots remain shallow. Another tree grows through wind, seasons, and resistance. Not because suffering is the goal, but because resistance forces adaptation. This is anti-fragility, not simply surviving difficulty. Using difficulty as fuel for growth. An antifragile mind doesn't ask, "Why is this happening to me?" It asks, "What can this build inside me?" That single question can change the direction of an entire life. Because chasing happiness is a fragile strategy. Happiness depends on too many things outside your control. Other people's opinions, external results, unexpected circumstances. But character is built from something different. Your choices, your values, your standards. The actions you repeat when nobody is watching. Happiness is a consequence. Identity is the cause. And when you understand this, you stop waking up asking, "How can I feel better today?" You start asking, "What action would prove the person I want to become?" That question creates direction. Direction creates momentum. And momentum creates a new identity. But understanding this is only the beginning, because knowing who you want to become is easy. The difficult part is building a system that works even when your emotions pull you in the opposite direction. That is where real transformation begins. The first level is learning to reclaim your power of interpretation. Most people believe their emotions happen automatically. Something happens, and they immediately feel a certain way. But there is a hidden space between the event and the emotion. That space is interpretation, and that is where your freedom exists. Someone criticizes you, a project fails, a person doesn't respond the way you expected. The event happens, and your mind creates a meaning. This means I'm not good enough. This means I'm falling behind. This means I'll never succeed. But the event and the story you create about the event are not the same thing. The problem is that your brain often merges them together. Your automatic judgment starts feeling like reality, and when you cannot separate the two, you become controlled by thoughts you never questioned. An untrained mind asks, "Why do I feel this way?" A trained mind asks, "What interpretation created this emotion?" That shift seems small, but it changes everything, because your emotions stop becoming commands. They become information. Don't believe everything you think. Imagine having an old map. The map may look accurate, but if it was created with mistakes, it can lead you in the wrong direction. Your thoughts work the same way. They are a map of reality, not reality itself. So ask yourself, how many decisions have you made based on an interpretation you never stopped to examine? The second level is learning to act before you feel ready. Most people believe motivation comes first, then action. But disciplined people discover something different. Action creates motivation, not the other way around. Waiting until you feel prepared is often just waiting for permission, and life doesn't give permission. Your identity changes when you do something your old self would have avoided, when you train even without motivation, when you finish the difficult task instead of escaping into distraction, when you have the conversation you wanted to avoid. Every time you choose action over comfort, you send a message to yourself. I am someone who keeps my word. That is how identity is reprogrammed, not through repeating positive phrases, through evidence. Your brain starts believing what you repeatedly show it. If you act like a disciplined person long enough, you begin becoming one. The emotionally controlled mind asks, do I feel like doing this? The trained mind asks, is this who I want to become? Discomfort builds character. Think about a diamond. Pressure is not there to destroy it. Pressure is what transforms it into something valuable. The right pressure doesn't break a strong identity. It creates one dot, so ask yourself, what part of your potential is still hidden because you keep protecting yourself from the discomfort required to unlock it? The third level is reclaiming your attention. Because your attention is the most valuable resource you own. Most people protect their money, but they give away their attention every single day. Hours disappearing into endless scrolling, constant comparison, information designed to create anxiety, distractions that keep you reacting instead of creating. Each moment seems insignificant, but small leaks repeated for years create a fragmented life. Your attention is an investment. Everything you consume deposits something into your mind. Some things build you, others slowly weaken you. This is why you need a spiritual economy. You need to ask, does this increase my clarity? Does this strengthen my character? Does this move me closer to the person I want to become? A distracted mind searches for relief. A disciplined mind searches for direction, because if you don't control your attention, someone else will. Algorithms, advertising, other people's expectations, the opinions of strangers. A crowded mind creates limited perception. Sometimes the thing you need most is silence, because silence allows you to hear your own direction. Your attention creates your reality. Think about a magnifying glass. Light scattered everywhere has little power, but focused on one point, it can create fire. Your mind works the same way, so ask yourself, if someone analyzed the last 7 days of your life only by looking at where your attention went, would they see someone building a future or someone escaping from it? The fourth level is changing the question that guides your life. For years you have probably asked, what will make me happy? Replace it with something deeper. What would a person I respect do? Because happiness is too unstable to be your compass. Today you feel motivated, tomorrow you feel exhausted. Today people praise you, tomorrow they criticize you. If your direction depends on temporary emotions, your life will constantly change course. But when your direction comes from your values, something changes. You no longer need every day to feel perfect. You need every day to be aligned. That is virtue, not perfection, alignment. Doing what is right even when it is inconvenient. Keeping your promises even when nobody is watching. Maintaining your standards when lowering them would be easier. That is how a stable identity is built. Your self-worth stops depending on outcomes, it starts depending on integrity. The emotionally controlled person seeks comfort. The mature person seeks meaning. Identity is stronger than emotion. A ship doesn't cross an ocean by following the waves. It follows a direction. The waves constantly change. The direction remains. Your emotions are the waves. Your values are the compass. And when your compass is clear, you can move through any storm. So ask yourself, if tomorrow all external validation disappeared, no recognition, no praise, no approval, would you still respect the person you are becoming? Because that answer reveals who you truly are, and who you still have the potential to become. All this time you've been chasing something that was never designed to be chased. Happiness. You turned it into a goal, a condition. A measurement of whether your life was working. But now you can see the paradox. The more you need to feel happy, the more dependent you become on avoiding anything that feels bad. And the person who needs life to feel good all the time becomes controlled by anything that doesn't. A setback, a criticism, a difficult moment, a result that didn't go your way. But a trained mind works differently, not because it has eliminated negative emotions, but because it no longer treats them as enemies. It understands that pain can teach, discomfort can strengthen, failure can develop you, and difficult moments are not always signs that you are lost. Sometimes they are proof that you are growing. Real transformation begins when you stop asking, "How can I avoid feeling bad?" and start asking, "Who do I need to become to move through this?" That is the difference between a life built around chasing pleasure and a life built around building character. Because in the end, you won't remember every moment when you felt comfortable, but you will live with the consequences of the decisions you made when comfort was the easier choice. The person you become 10 years from now will be created by small decisions nobody sees, the conversation you chose to have, the task you chose to finish, the discipline you chose to maintain, the impulse you chose to control, not through one dramatic moment, but through thousands of small actions repeated when nobody was watching. That is what identity really is, not a label, a pattern. Every action is a vote for the person you are becoming. And here is the final realization. People who chase happiness spend their lives checking if they are happy. People who build a meaningful life are too busy living to ask, because they have found something deeper than a temporary emotion. They have found direction. They have found alignment. They have found respect for themselves. Happiness does not disappear when you stop chasing it. It simply stops controlling you. It becomes the result of a life that is already aligned. So the next time you have a difficult day, don't ask, "Why can't I feel better?" Ask, "What is this moment teaching me about the person I am becoming?" Because maybe life was never trying to make you happy. Maybe it was trying to make you stronger. And a strong person is not someone who never suffers. A strong person is someone who refuses to abandon their values when suffering appears. If this changed the way you see happiness, write in the comments, "Today I stopped chasing emotions." Not as a motivational phrase, as a decision about your identity. And subscribe if you are willing to do something most people avoid. Build a character stronger than any temporary emotion.